Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another broadcast of the Lawrence Report. On tonight's broadcast, we will be discussing episode 5 of Lawmen, Bass Reeves. Now, for me, this episode right here foreshadowed a lot of story points that we're going to be seeing in the future of this series right here. And as I continue to break down this episode, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. In the very beginning stages of this episode, we see Billy Crow and Bass. They're kind of like at a stakeout, and they're basically looking across the street. They're hiding. They're looking across the street, looking at this grocery store, right? But before we even start there, we see in the early stages of the show there is a figure, a man that is hung up in a tree, and he has a message that is plastered on his body, basically saying that Bass Reeves will be here, aka Bass Reeves one day is going to get hanged. That's what it basically means, right? And Bass and Billy Crow, they're on the hunt for this man by the name of Jim Webb. So they end up taking over the grocery store, and it was a complete shootout, guns blazing. You know how they do by now if you've been watching this series. And at the same time, unfortunately, Bass ends up getting grazed a little bit, but Billy Crow really got grazed in the worst way. He ends up basically getting shot in the neck. And, Bass is, he tells him, hey, put some pressure on this thing right here with your hand, and I'll come back to check you out. So Bass is ensuing this man, Mr. Webb here, and basically after they go around in circles, Bass does end up shooting and killing this guy right here. And Billy Crow is left alone for a second, but Bass comes back to, rescue him. And while the shootout took place at this grocery store, there's this one man that is, kind of still hanging on, breathing slowly. And Bass tells Billy to, hey, well, Bass tells Billy Crow to put this man out of his misery. Of course, Billy Crow seems to be a little bit nervous. I think he's still trying to get used to being a posse man, and he does put him out of his misery, right? Of course, Bass returns back to the precinct to cash out on his money, thinking, okay, cool, I've done all these bounties now. I'm going to go home to my wife and family, right? Not so quick, Bass Reeves. Unfortunately, Cheryl Lynn is back in the picture, and Cheryl tells him that Judge Parker has a job for him. So Bass Reeves is like, hey, listen, I've been away from my family from 40 days and 40 nights. Cheryl Lynn, why don't you take this job over? I don't want it. And unfortunately, we do find out that Cheryl Lynn has been demoted. Basically, Cheryl Lynn is pretty much like a supervisor now. He says, I'm pushing papers. That's basically what he says. Like Judge Parker gives me things to do, and I pass them on to you, people like you, Bass Reeves. It's your duty to do this. So Bass is like, okay, I guess I gotta take this over. Bass goes home to his family. He's welcomed, with open arms from his family. But it seems like, some of the kids may not recognize him again because he has been gone for so long. So Bass is completely embraced by the family, and later, he's loving on his wife. And then the morning after, let me back up. I should say, his daughter is talking about going to this carnival. And in Bass's mind, he hasn't told his family that I may not be able to go to this carnival because I kind of got another job to do. So in this episode right here, we see Bass caught up between the badge and the family time, right? That's how many of us feel even today. In this time period here, it's the money versus the family sometimes, right? And we're caught up in that web, and that's what Bass is seeing right here. So the next morning, as they're eating breakfast, here comes Billy Crow. And unfortunately, Bass has to break the news to his family that he can't go to the carnival. And, his wife, Jeannie, she's upset with Bass. She's like, you knew about this last night when we was together. You didn't say a word to me. And Bass is like, listen, I made a vow to the badge. And she's like, well, you also made a vow to our marriage. So right now, Bass is in hot water. So Billy Crow and Bass are basically, on their way to transport coal to the Red River Jail. That's their duty. That is their mission. And of course, while they're doing this transporting, Billy Crow makes some, wild, crazy comments to Cole. And, Bass is not feeling those comments, and he kind of tells Billy Crow that, I've been kind of disappointed with you as my posse man. And, you know, I don't know if you're quite ready to be the full posse man that I need you to be. And Billy Crow was kind of shocked and sad about this. He's like, well, Bass, are you giving up on me? And Bass replies back, I never give up. So while Billy Crow, Bass, and Cole are, traveling, they are unfortunately bombarded with this heavy rainstorm. So they're trying to, seek refuge in another home. And they come across this one family. At first, they think that the family is actually Choctaw, but it turns out the family is actually of Spanish descent. So, of course, Billy Crow's able to talk to them in Spanish, saying, hey, can we rest at your place for the night? And, the people let them in, they give them a good meal, they give them a drink. And the drink kind of gives Bass like these hallucinations. So they kind of warn each other at this dinner table not to necessarily drink this drink, because the drink may have been filled with, I don't want to say poison, but the drink has something in it that had Bass completely hallucinating. And the lady is kind of like I don't want to say witch doctor or anything like that, but she's more like I guess you say like a soothsayer, somebody like that. And she tells Bass that death is following him. And she even points at him. And Bass is like, okay, cool. Let me go outside. I'm hearing things. I'm staring into this fire. I'm hearing things. And he sees, as he looks out into the woods, of course, he takes his gun with him. So as Bass is looking out into these woods, he sees his old friend Curtis. And, again, Bass is completely hallucinating. And, morning comes around and Bass and the team, they get ready to go. And Cole, he, talks to Bass to let him know basically the reason why he ended up killing the senator, which was, kind of horrific about the things that the senator was doing. So as morning falls, Bass and Cole, they're having a conversation, and we find out that, this politician named James Neblett, the man who Cole killed, this man basically not only killed his own slaves, but he also burned them. For one reason, whenever they stood against him, that was the punishment. And when Cole saw an opportunity to kill this man, he took the opportunity. And, he even said that, him and Bass are kind of alike in some ways. And him and, of course, Bass, says, no way, we are nothing alike. We're two different type of men. I'm more honorable than what you'll ever be in your day. Considering that, now that Bass is out, on work duty, he isn't going to be able to take his oldest daughter to this carnival. So while Jeannie and her daughter are in the field, they get into a little argument. Basically, she's saying, well, the daughter's saying, well, daddy makes enough money now. Why do we have to be out here in this hot sun doing this farming work? And the mother replies, well, I don't want you to be spoiled. And, she even reveals to her daughter that I know you've been sneaking out with that boy named Arthur. And, I don't trust him and I don't want you to be around him. But the daughter's like, Mom, like, I'm a teenager now, soon to be a grown woman. When are you going to give me some freedom of my own? So we do find out in this episode that the mother, Jeannie, says, you know what? Since your daddy can't take you to the carnival, how about you let Arthur do it? Of course, the daughter is smiling ear to ear. She's happy. So basically, we have a little date night, well, date day, I guess you could say, coming up at the carnival. But things get kind of crazy at this carnival. So, Sally and Arthur, they're at this carnival having a good time. sightseeing, things of that nature. And while they're waiting in line to go to the next thing that they're going to go to at the carnival, this little white girl jumps in front of them. This little white girl, look, she's maybe 8 years old or something like that. She has a mouth on her also. So Sally is like, excuse me, ma'am, little girl, the line is in the back. And the little girl turns around and is like, well, the line is for people like you. You should be at the back. I'm just paraphrasing here, right? And of course, that completely sets off Sally. She's like, how disrespectful are you? Like, she's like, I should basically snatch that tongue out of your mouth for being racist and being disrespectful. So the little girl father, I think it was either her father or brother, comes for her. He finally finds her. I guess she got lost or whatever. And they go about their merry business. But Arthur and Sally, they're looking at each other like, can you believe what just happened? Like, who does this little girl think she is? The little girl basically ends up telling her brother that, some black people, well, I guess you would say back in her day, she would say Negro people, basically told her that she'd get to the back of the line. So Jackson and Arthur, they're walking home that night, only to find out, hopping out of the woods randomly is this little, well, not little boy, but the brother of that little girl. He hops out of the woods and is like, hey, I heard you been talking disrespectful to my sister. And, a fight ensues between Arthur, Sally, and these four little racist white boys, right? And eventually the fight ends up getting, settled and everybody goes about their merry way. But again, that girl, Sally, I like her. She is tough as nails, just like her daddy. And the crazy part is, the mother, Jeannie, ends up picking up the daughter and this boy, Arthur. And they kind of keep it quiet about the situation that happened. But also for Jeannie, she gets a unexpected visitor to her house. It is SMA. She arrives to the house and she's saying, why haven't I been, brought over to the house? I would love to talk to you about, the vision that me and my husband have for us as Black Americans, basically. And Jeannie is kind of like, I wish you would have called. You could save me some time because, I really ain't trying to hear this right now. So they're talking, and she's talking about how, you let your daughter, well, we find out that, SMA is kind of shocked that Jeannie let her daughter go off to this carnival by herself. And SMA is like, they're killing back black folks up and down the indigenous rivers or whatever the case may be. We need to be more careful as a people. And she talked about how when her friends went missing, a guy by the name of Samson. And, the way she's describing it, she's basically talking about, Mr. Sundown, basically. We saw what happened by Mr. Sundown in episode 4. And of course, Jeannie reaches over for another drink. She's like, okay, so you've been listening to too many campfire stories right here. And Jeannie tries to play it off, but, fortunately, this is a real thing that people of color was actually, being kidnapped. So Bass and Billy Crow are still, going through the territory trying to transport coal. And they come across this man, and it is revealed to be Esau. We saw him back in episode, I believe it was either episode 1 through 3. And the goal for Bass and them was to basically, transport coal to the Rangers at the Red River. And somehow we didn't realize, Bass didn't realize that this man right here, Esau, is apparently one of the sheriffs. And it ends in kind of like a cliffhanger because we didn't know. We saw that man whenever he shot the Indian boy, we saw he basically ran off from there. So you see now some of the storylines I was talking about. We still got SMA and her stuff. We still got even the relationship between Sally and Arthur. What's gonna happen with that? We still got Billy Crow trying to become a better posse man. We got Bass trying to juggle family issues with law. So it's so much going on that they put us in a good predicament. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen with these next couple episodes of Lawman Bass Reeves. If y'all watching this right here, please comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this series right here. And as always, thank you for tuning in to the Lawrence Report.